Okay, what y'all have to understand is Jupiter is their old sun. Jupiter used to be the original sun. Jupiter used to be the center of the universe, right? And this kind of like all before the Big Bang, okay? So we have Jupiter at the center of their universe, right? Their old sun. We're gonna make it look like a sun or a comet or whatever, right? Let's see. 6 points, yeah, 6 point star. Star David, that's what they worship. Star of David is the old sun, right? We're gonna keep it simple. Now, the original 13 planets that orbited around the old sun are the ones that we know about now. The closest one to orbit was Mercury. You have Mercury, right? This is all taking place more than we're gonna go back. It's 13,000 years ago. Okay, this is the theory I've been trying to get across. That we said it 13,000 years ago. Mercury, Venus, Earth, which was basically called Utopia C because it was habitable. And then you had Mars, which was habitable at the time, as Utopia B. Okay? So you got 4 planets on this side of the sun basically rotating. And then you had the other 9 planets rotating on this side of the sun. And we can go in order. We can start off with Saturn. Saturn was almost like a moon of this planet. It was just some tobacco right there. Saturn was its original moon. So it had like its own little small little meteorite field around it at the time. Then you had Neptune. Yeah, man, I messed up right there. Like I'm doing everything freestyle. Neptune, right? Then you had Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Right, Uranus. And then Pluto. Okay. Then Pluto. Which was Utopia A. It was habitable.
Is that possible, Doctor?
Well, I suppose. Stranger things have happened in medicine.
So let's count these planets so far. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, one, two, three, four. We got 8 planets. It was 13 planets total. So
Well, according to these results,
you got those 5
Mrs. Griffin, could I speak with you and Brian?
planets that we see on the asteroid chart.
You wait in the car.
Okay, let's go find the big black Saturn.
Halley's Comet,
It's always fun. You can climb on it, or you can decide to leave. It's your choice.
What is it, Jack? Well,
Halley's Comet
Brian's kidneys are small.
was once a planet.
Capacity of a human kidney. For the procedure
It's
to work,
part of this. It
transplant.
was part of the original 13 planets.
But I only have 2. That's right. The procedure would kill you.
Sorry about that. I'm moving the camera around because it's starting to get warm. Okay. Sorry about that.
God, Dr. Hoffman, isn't there any other way?
All right.
I'm afraid not, Mrs. Griffin.
Let's refocus. Halley's Comet.
Good. I'll give you my kidneys.
Then you have May May
Brian, you'll die.
Peter,
or May May,
best friend. You gave me a home when I didn't have one.
Hellbop,
You've treated me like a family member ever since. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I'd probably be dead anyway, lying under some freeway overpass. And I want to return the favor. After all, I'm a dog.
which
Another 8 years
Hellbop
success.
is
Give that up so I can have another 40.
the same orbit as Pluto because Hellbop and Pluto were next to each other. That's why their orbits are similar, okay?
Good years together, right?
So we've got Halley's Comet, May May, Hellbop. So we got 1, 2, 3. We got 10. We got 3. It was 3 more planets. It was 3 more planets that surrounded Jupiter 13,000 years ago.
Hello, everyone. Lois, did you quit stewing?
And at this moment,
Good. I'd rather he didn't know about this till it's over.
I don't have the names of the planets off the top of my head because I'm doing everything off the top of my head with the knowledge that I have.
Kind of close the book.
But we're gonna put those 2 mystery planets on here
With each one.
as
Meg, you're so beautiful.
Planet Q,
It's very important that you know your limitations.
What do you mean?
I know
which could be those last 2 remaining asteroids that orbit near May May.
Yes.
We're gonna say Planet Q and Planet R,
you grow from a little boy into the young man you are.
right?
I know sometimes life seems tough.
These
You just remember to
all these planets before Jupiter,
I know you can't.
Jupiter's energy was drained,
I only ask this because of the
were habitable. Every single planet was habitable.
Can I hump your leg for 15 uninterrupted seconds?
I suppose so, Brian. I said you could do it for 15 seconds.
Didn't need it.
All planets were habitable because their orbits were all in sync with each other, where they didn't orbit too close to the sun, where they felt the CMEs that used to, the CME flares, they used to come off of Jupiter just like any other sun.
I kidnap you.
Those CME flares
Rest of our lives living right here under the slide. Stewie,
used to have, I say it's a limit to where the CME flares go, and
kill yourself.
all the planets at this time were in perfect
Right now, untie.
synchrony
Will not.
with each other, where Jupiter's
You can live without a dog, Stewie.
heat
Can't live without a father.
didn't affect any of these planets. So all these planets were habitable at the time. All these planets were habitable.
Right here where we need
Now,
to be done. Let's give us the greatest store.
the story with Pluto,
The seesaw is the post office.
when Pluto
Sandbox is our summer home.
was destroyed
Right? We have a
because
summer home. I mean, yes.
the planet was terraformed.
Oh, no way.
When the planet was terraformed, the energy, the direct energy
Right now, you're gonna lose.
was being sucked from Jupiter, right? So they had some type of device on Pluto
Oh my God.
where they sucked the energy out of Jupiter in order to use Jupiter's energy for power here on Pluto, to power all their, to basically power their society at that time, right? So once there was a problem. The problem was once Jupiter reacted. That's why you have that. That's why they always show that little solar storm right there on what was left of Jupiter after its core. Jupiter's core. I keep having tobacco stuff all on here. Jupiter's core was drained of its energy, right? Once Jupiter's core was drained of its energy, whatever type of direct energy weapon that the humanoids or humans were using on Pluto at this time, there was an energy transfer that occurred here where the energy that was being received here on Pluto, it became too massive. The Earth's the core of Pluto became overwhelmed with Jupiter's energy. Okay? Which caused a chain reaction on this planet, caused a chain reaction on Pluto, which the terraforming the terraforming caused Pluto's destruction. Okay? So we know now what caused Pluto's destruction is the device that they was using to extract the energy from the original sun, and they basically literally sucked all the energy out of Jupiter, and it caused a chain reaction on Pluto where all the energy was being stored, and then boom, Pluto blew up. And when Pluto blew up, the chain reaction from Pluto exploding pushed all these planets all into different orbits and destroyed their atmospheres, and basically turned most of these planets into floating asteroids. And Pluto became basically a roaring black hole with meteorites around it. And in the middle is Pluto's leftover core. That's what you see that be so bright on the space charts is Pluto's leftover core. It's formed itself into its own little planet. That's why it's called Planet X. You got the meteorites floating around it. You got Saturn taking on its orbit. You got Neptune taking on its orbit. And then the rest of the planets that's around it.
Great dumper. And by dumper, I mean...
Hellbop, this Hellbop is unique because Hellbop is almost about the same size as Planet X. So it orbits when Pluto was destroyed, Hellbop was blown in a different direction. That's why you see Hellbop and Planet X moving in opposite directions, but they have the same orbit. And then Planet R and Planet Q and May and Halley's Comet atmospheres were destroyed. Their atmosphere was destroyed, and they basically became floating asteroids. And on basically our side of Jupiter,
You know how stupid you sound?
Peter, take a
Venus and Mercury's atmospheres were destroyed.
I'm sorry, I keep messing up. You're
Earth's atmosphere was destroyed too, but it remained habitable because once we passed through the black hole,
For some reason, it's all just a sort
that's why these two planets were basically habitable after the last pole shift, because they were basically outside of the new safe zone that was created from the new sun after the portal connection was made from Pluto's explosion.
Heart attack for Wilson. Hey, we have a bet. Do you remember if you put your wrist to your forehead like a Nazi boy when you fainted?
I do not care.
Peter, you need
After the Big Bang,
I'm texting you a link to a collection
Mars
called
and Earth were basically the only last, how can I say, habitable planets that were left.
No, it's more like da, 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 da.
Oh, really? Because I don't like that.
No, I assure you.
So what y'all got to understand is what you see that's behind the sun now is Jupiter. That's what you're seeing on those videos that we making. You seeing Jupiter. You seeing the size of it and everything is hiding behind our sun now. This is our sun now, our new sun. And what Comet Ison does, right? Pluto, the destroyed planet. Let's go, it's coming in. It's this orbit, right? It's kind of like, I'm just, freestyling its orbit. Basically, it passes in front of Jupiter and it comes around the sun. When it makes its magnetic portal connection, let me bring it closer. Sorry about that, y'all. When it makes its magnetic portal connection with the sun, it's drawing its energy right back to Jupiter, and it replenishes Jupiter. That's what it does. Every 2,500 years, when this thing orbits, when Comet Ison orbits, right? When it orbits, comes in, makes its magnetic portal connection. That's why we start getting the bad weather and earthquakes, because it's feeding off our sun, and the disturbances from the sun is causing those huge CME flares that's hitting our planet now. Okay? I'm gonna put 2023 on there so we can know that's us right here. So it's here. We seeing Jupiter. Every time he is eclipsing the sun and it's replenishing its energy. That's what it's doing, is making the total magnetic portal connection with Comet Ison. And Comet Ison, all it does is conducts the energy from the sun to Jupiter, and then Jupiter relays the energy back to the sun. When it passes over, that's when we're gonna get the meteorites that's left over from Pluto, the meteorites that's following this thing. It's got meteorites that's following it, right? So, since we know all this now, we know Pluto's origin. We know that there was 13 planets.
Are my toes tapping? I feel like my toes are tapping.
Oh, there's a seagull pecking at your foot.
13 planets that originally followed or orbited Jupiter. That's why they say Jupiter is nothing but a planet full of gas, because it's been depleted of all its energy, of all its nuclear energy. That's why you have the big solar storm right here, and you got the gas around it. You see all the gas clouds that's around it, because it's been depleted of its energy 13,000 years ago, and it has to come back around in orbit just to replenish itself off our sun. That's what it does. Each of these planets have a time. That's what I'm trying to get to this right here. This chart right here now, since we went through the basics. Each planet has a function, right? From what I calculated, pi is the root of all numbers. 3.14 is the function of all numbers. So what I've done is I've taken this formula and I found a way to mathematically count how many times these planets have been around the sun to figure out their orbits in time and space, to understand their nature and understand if these planets are timeless or not. Now, the sun is most definitely timeless, because without the sun, we don't have life. So the sun is measured at time 1 equals 0, right? And then we have the pi function of 3.14. So this is what I've done to calculate the function of these planets. This is how I found out that Jupiter was their old sun. This is how I figured it out. Okay. Now, I assumed that Jupiter was the sixth planet basically in our solar system, right? So I timed Jupiter at 6x, and then I've basically kind of figured out that Jupiter possibly could have orbited the sun 24 times through history. We could have 24 orbits of the old sun orbiting around our new sun. So we're going to calculate that. That's what we're going to do. I calculated it, right? So this notebook is really bothering me. I should have got the old school high school notebook. It's flipping and it doesn't want to stay down. I'm going to have to use something to keep it down. Straight nerd stuff. There we go. Now I can work. Now I took the I took the 6x and times it by pi, right? And I did my own factoring, times 3, and then T3. I used time 3 and the function of time 3 is 6x. 6x,
It wasn't seagulls. I got
and
lost on it.
over 0, because we're guessing that this is the old sun and Jupiter is timeless. So once I took in those factors and I put them together, I came out with a function of 18.84, because obviously when you cross multiply this, all these cancel out, and then you just got the 6 times the 3.14. So once you put that into your calculator, you have 18.84, and I estimated that to be 19, and 19 is an odd number.
I'm sorry. Don't know what else to say.
Planets cannot have odd numbers or odd frequencies, so that's what made me come to the conclusion that Jupiter is timeless and Jupiter is the old sun. That's how I figured it out through, I wouldn't say simple mathematical factoring, but you have to know these times and where to put the factoring at with these times. You have to really know this. Okay, here's Comet Ison's time. Comet Ison, we know Comet Ison has been around. Okay, look, here we go. I just seen something, right? I just seen something. That's how you know this is Jupiter and this is Comet Ison. You can just look at it through the math. We know Jupiter is timeless. Once you factor all this together, it's going to come out to 0 because of the 0 here. Jupiter has made 6 orbits. Now I'm looking at the factoring. Jupiter has completed 6 orbits around the sun. It has. It's completed 6 orbits around the sun. And then we know that Comet Ison is coming around for its 5th orbit, right? So I did the same exact math I did with Jupiter. I took the same function of 3.14 and I times it by 5x, because we know that Comet Ison is coming around into its 5th orbit into our solar system. So once I got to that conclusion and you figured out the math,
Thank God we're all okay.
the Comet Ison comes out to a function of 15.7, which if you round it up is factorable to 16. So if it's factorable up to 16, that means Comet Ison has a time. That makes Comet Ison a planet. Because once you take the equation, you break down, I just showed y'all how I broke down the 5x. And I took the 5x, the 5 orbits, and I times it times 2 over the factor of pi times 2 to break down all the factors to get the factor by itself, the 5x t squared over pi. So like I said, we go back into this function, and once we apply all the data, it comes out to 16, and it's an even number. And it can be tracked. Planet X can be tracked at its given speed of 4x, because once you factor 16, it comes out to 4x. That's what made me that's what made me suggest that since Jupiter was timeless, maybe this is when its energy was drained from its core at 24 BCE. Because you take its 6 orbits and you multiply it by Comet Ison's orbits. With Comet Ison, you take Jupiter's orbits and multiply by Comet Ison's speed. That's how I came up with 24 BCE. But that might not be accurate. But what we do know is that Comet Ison has a time, and it can be tracked because all the numbers are factorable when you apply the 3.14 function into the equation. Same thing goes for Uranus. I figured out Uranus orbited the sun 14 times. It's orbited. That's it. When you figure out how many times the planet has orbited around the sun, then you know its originality of when the planet came about. Okay, that's it. 24 BCE for Jupiter. Once Jupiter came into our orbit, basically at 24 BCE. Uranus has been around the sun 14 times and was discovered in 56 BCE. So each planet is moving. This planet is moving slower. Uranus is obviously moving slower than Neptune. Neptune has been around the sun 10 times. So Neptune's been around the sun 10 times. Its origin is at 40 BCE. So these planets are ancient. That's what I mean by these planets are ancient. Once you factor them around the Big Bang, basically we're going to put this as the Big Bang. 4x as the Big Bang is when Pluto exploded. Right? So Neptune been around 10 times, and this origin of discovery is at 40 BCE. This planet was 16 years earlier at 56 BCE. This is when these planets were possibly habitable. But if we calculate all the times correctly, we'll know when these planets were actually originated. Jupiter's discovery is at 24 BCE. And let's see. Yeah, those are only two planets that I really experimented on with this formula to know when their previous orbits were. That's basically what this is. Yeah, that's their previous orbit. Is the BCE times. 24 BCE was Jupiter's last orbit. Uranus' last orbit was 56 BCE. That's exactly what this math is telling me. That's what I'm seeing now. And Jupiter's last orbit was 40 BCE. So these times are their previous orbits. Previous orbits around the sun. Well, around Jupiter, around the old sun. So this planet has made 9 orbits before 40 BCE. This planet has made 14 orbits before 56 BCE. So these planets were already rotating around Jupiter way before, our solar system even came about. These planets been here. That's what the math is showing. These planets been here. And Jupiter last orbit was 24 BCE. And that's almost exactly 25,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago. Okay, since if we're seeing Jupiter on the space charts and everything hiding behind the sun, his last orbit was about 2,000 years ago, and that's almost exactly correct with the math that I have on Comet Ison orbiting our planet. The math is almost correct. So that means Jupiter is a little bit ahead of Comet Ison in orbit. Let's say Jupiter is probably We're gonna give it at least. I'm almost saying it's not too much more than they're probably 12 years apart. Because the Comet Ison's orbit, when it's doing that little zigzag orbit, like I showed y'all, be doing that little zigzag orbit when it passes in front of the sun, Jupiter's right behind it. So Jupiter's probably only about 12 years away from it anyway. So it's pulling, Comet Ison is pulling all these objects with it every 2,500 years, basically. So this the last time this damn thing that came around on us about this time, about 24 BCE. Okay, and that's what we discovered doing this math. And I did not time the other planets. The only time Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter. Those only 3 planets I timed. You can use this math to time any planet in the solar system. Okay? You can use this math. We're just going to still just say that Saturn is a moon. We're deducting that Saturn is a moon. I first deducted that Comet Ison was Saturn because of the rings that's around it. It has the similarities to Comet Ison. But no, Saturn is a moon of Jupiter, and it's got its own little mini meteorite field around it. And Comet Ison is the main object that's pulling all these objects around it. All the rest of these objects that's around it. See? Here go the ecliptical, the new ecliptical orbit. The new orbit of the solar system versus the old solar system, right? So, our sun right now is moving on the y-axis. Their sun, the old sun, Jupiter, is moving on the x-axis. That's why we call it Planet X. It's moving on the x-axis, moving 26 degrees, and it's moving right to left. Our sun is moving 52 degrees left to right, clockwise. Well, like a clock. My bad, I'm doing it the wrong way. Our sun is moving like the clock that we see, on our watches and everything. Saturn, not Saturn, but Jupiter, how would I say Jupiter, or the old sun, is moving counterclockwise, okay, on a 26-degree angle, okay? They're moving on the 26, we're moving on the 52. And that's why we get caught up in the meteorite field when this thing comes around. This is exactly why we get caught up in the meteorite field, because we're moving with the sun on the 52-degree plane, and this thing is moving opposite on the 26-degree plane. That's exactly how we get caught up. See? There's 4 orbits. And this thing is coming back around for its 5th orbit. The math proves it.